In today's market, it appears that the only consistency left is change. Regulators are driving change at a pace that's never been seen before. I'm here today with Alan Paris from eClerx, and I want to talk about change in the market. If we're talking about change, who within the market or who within these institutions is really responsible for managing this change?
Well, Alex, that's an interesting question, and many firms approach it in different ways, but what we've seen consistently is that whether you're a bank, a broker, a hedge fund, or an asset manager, there's a responsible executive who's chosen on the operations side, there's a responsible executive chosen on the technology side to engage the business lines and pull together the team across the firm to do regulatory reporting and to deliver the change that's required there.
Are these institutions, whether large or small, buy side, sell side, are they staffed? Are they really designed around this change management function? Are they managing it effectively?
I think they're managing it effectively. I think they've had time to learn to cope with the pace of change from the regulatory issues that are coming down now over the past couple of years. You know, we're 3 years into Dodd-Frank now, so firms have had a lot of experience. I think where they've had issues is with the uncertainty regarding the rules. But the great thing that's happened across firms that I've seen is the team effort that goes across now, across business lines, the breaking down of silos, because the data that you need to report to the regulators and what they're requiring on a real-time basis really requires working across the firm. People can no longer have their fiefdoms, and that's where we come in. We help them pull that all together to aggregate that data, cleanse it, and build the reporting around it.
That must be an exceptionally difficult task, especially for some of the larger organizations on the sell side that have existed in sort of these siloed sort of, almost little molehills where, I've got my desk, I've got my practice, I'm either, fixed income or commodities, I manage my own data, I manage my own collateral, I manage my own assets. Has it been difficult for them to pull these sort of cross-asset, siloed organizations together to manage change?
It's a great question. I think it has been challenging, but I think I see our clients have been up to the challenge. And I think that there's a number of drivers for that. It's not just the regulatory, it's the cost pressures. Remember, they want to bring down costs. So bringing down costs means that people cannot continue to manage data as islands. They cannot manage their business as islands. They need to look at across the firm for the effects across the firm.
We're seeing, we've been talking a lot about regulatory change, and most of the folks have been really focused on the technology aspect of it, but there's a bigger gap there. Behind the technology, supporting the technology, is also process improvement, process management, change management. How are firms in today's market sort of dealing with all of that? Well,
that's right. Technology can only take you so far. Firms are organizing themselves around core teams to address the myriad regulatory questions that are going on across the globe. Where we come in is helping them with the glue to pull that all together, whether it's data aggregation or data cleansing, or whether it's backlogs in terms of your KYC, that's your Know Your Client renewals, or dealing with credit support annexes. We're the people who help make that happen. So once the firms have decided on what their policies and procedures are, we are the people who help them implement that.
Are firms having challenges today sort of adjusting to the pace of change? Is that causing a myriad of problems for them? Or are most firms saying, okay, we can handle it as it's coming down the pike? Because it seems like, especially with regulatory change coming up in Dodd-Frank, so the EMIR, the new MiFID arrangements, all these things, this change just seems to be coming at a faster and faster pace.
It's not only the fast pace, but it's also the uncertainty. Because now, 3 years down the road with Dodd-Frank, we still have only about 50% of the rules defined, and in some of the areas, there's even fewer rules defined. So firms are having to make educated guesses and then take a direction and spend money on that to get that right.
Is that just on sort of the buy side, or is it the sell side? Is it the technology players? Is it one part of the market, or is it the entire market is sort of adjusting to this sort of ever-changing landscape?
In many cases, the buy side is waiting to follow the sell side's needs in these areas because their needs are more limited.
So if I'm a sell-side firm and I'm adjusting to all the changes that are coming down either here or in Europe or what's going to happen in Asia or Latin America, what is the process by which I go through and say, okay, we've got this regulatory change, these new rules have come out, we've invested in technology, and then all of a sudden I start this new technology up and all of a sudden I sort of hit a brick wall. What are folks actually doing to overcome these challenges?
Well, first of all, they have to, they're generating reams and reams of data, and they have to report on this data at specific times, across specific geographies, and to specific regulatory entities. So all of that has to actually be organized and mitigated. One way to approach that is to build a regulatory reporting hub. In that way, you can bring in all of the data that you require and then report out to the various regulatory bodies that you need. You can run satellites in some of your key trading areas, be they New York, Hong Kong, Tokyo, or London, but at the same time, an outsourced or offshored solution to manage that data can bring certain benefits in terms of scalability, lower cost, lower headcount. One of the main drivers, of course, of that is cost and efficiency, but also on the other side of that, you're looking at very, very tight controls around the data itself, around the confidentiality of the data.
Yeah, I would think that there have to be very strict SLAs involved, sort of these service level agreements involved with any type of relationship with either an outsourced organization or a technology provider around delivery, around confidentiality. I mean, if I'm looking to try to engineer an outsourced solution, are those the things I should be looking at?
Absolutely, absolutely. So in terms of determining a service level agreements, you're trying to understand what the average handling time of a particular document or a particular data entity is, and then from there you're trying to build out your service level agreement, and then from there take it to a benchmark level so that you're benchmarking the process, you understand what you can do in what period of time, and then sharing that, of course, with the client so you can come up with a mutual term for how you're going to approach it.
And when you start benchmarking these things, is it appropriate for clients to say, okay, we have a current benchmark of X, in 3 months, 6 months, 9 months, we want it to be Y, and then another year we want it to be Z, and constantly improving that benchmark? Is that a realistic assumption for folks to make?
It is over time. It is over time, because as you're able to re-engineer the process, improve the process, and deliver greater efficiencies, you can either lower the time it takes to do an individual process or potentially lower the head count for that process and then take on more work.
Gotcha. Well, Alan, thank you very much for joining us today. It seems that change is here to stay, and managing that change includes managing the processes around it. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Alex.